And we are live. Hello, hello. Welcome to Kitchen Party, where we are going to be watching Jared make something like baked Alaska. So this image is a little bit misleading because sadly Jared will not be setting anything on fire today. I asked, but I guess he's just no fun, and he has this thing about setting things on fire in his apartment, and yeah, he's not going to do that. But anyway, here we are. Hello.
It's so unreasonable of me.
I know.
Not to have open flame.
Oh, such a wet
in an
blanket.
old building.
Okay, see,
it would be pretty nice to see some open flames.
It would, be very entertaining for the folks at home to watch you set things on fire.
Lose my eyebrows.
But
I've got enough to lose.
They grow back.
I can lose a few. Oh, I know. I know that.
We'll ask you how you know that at a later point in this broadcast. But for now, look at this. I've got over here the cooking ingredients, because Jared has like a different camera, but it's both him. And over here is Jared himself. And down there are our guests for this week. So let's just I'm gonna like start with Jared, and then we can go around. Jared, say hi.
Hello. I mean, Barev. It's Armenian for hello.
All right. Moriah, hello. Who are you?
Hi.
What should we know about you?
I am Jared's sister, Barev. I don't know what to say about myself. That's basically all I have going for me.
Just
I'm Jared's
say
sister.
anything in Armenian and nobody will. People
Anything
will think
in Armenian?
In Armenian.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll sound mysterious.
Yesvatem hayerenum, baitias kaporem. No, kaportsem.
Wow. What language family is Armenian? Like, what other languages?
Indo-European. It's its own. Sorry, Moriah has actually been studying this more than I have.
I asked Moriah, Jared.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead, Moriah.
What? Well, you actually probably know more about this than I do, but pretty much the extent of what I know is it is Indo-European, but I've heard like it's also kind of its like own thing where it's not super related to other languages, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember if that's correct.
Like Maltese or Estonian, I think.
Maltese is actually a Semitic language. It's related to like Hebrew and Arabic.
Okay.
And Estonian is related to Finnish, which is a different language family.
Yeah, they're like a.
Sorry, I wanted to be a linguist for a bit when I was a teen, so.
All right, Wendy. Hello.
Hello.
Who are you? Why are you here?
I'm Wendy. I'm here because I'm your friend. And let's see, what else can I say about myself? I'm in Toronto right now, which like also Nadia is and nobody else here is. So there's that. I'm a librarian. That's it. That's all I got. Really, I don't have a whole lot. Yeah.
It's summer. We're not like being super ambitious.
It's chill, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I have nothing to promote. I have no SoundCloud.
We're just here to hang. Inbal, hello. Where are you? What's going on?
I am in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, on the Atlantic coast. We have sort of all the bases covered, like west, middle, east. So I'm the representative for the East Coast from Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. Yeah. And I don't know, doing a bunch of stuff. But it's not about me. It's about Jared's Baked Alaska.
No, it is about everybody. Just I'm the backdrop.
Everybody. Oh, and we have people watching us. This is very exciting. If you are watching us, you can post a comment in the comments and say hi. You can ask a question, and we will endeavor to answer it. And yeah, please participate. We according to the thing have 6 people watching us. I don't know if that's an accurate thing, but that's exciting. That's like a big viewership around here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to zoom in on Jared, who is going to explain that what he is going to be making for us this afternoon is less a baked Alaska and more of a baked Ararat. At least that's what I've been calling it. Explain.
A solid gag that we will repeat ad nauseum.
Well, it sounded better than baked Armenia, which is just
that just sounds weird. So I try to alternate like Hello. Like desserts with other food. And last time was that squid ink pasta. So this time had to be a dessert. So it's been an elaborate dessert. And I was like, texting my pastry chef sister, oh my God, what's an elaborate dessert to make? And she suggested Baked Alaska. And I thought, oh. But some of us siblings have been sort of rediscovering parts of our heritage here. The first episode of this was, hi. That's pastry chef sister.
In Armenian.
Yeah. Some of us have been learning Armenian, that kind of thing. The first episode of this was Monty, an Armenian dumpling. And so I thought it would be fun to actually try to make something using those flavors. And I had to find these like old 70s cookbooks with
the best kind.
Look at this author photo. This is
oh man,
I love her. Yeah, and one of them, the woman who wrote it was an immigrant who her instructions are so bizarre. They're like, shrivel this thing, or until it turns pink, and it's something that you don't think of as turning pink because she's using a second language and all that. So what I'm going to do live on camera is just invent this thing. I'm going to be using a sort of yogurt spice cake for the base. It's just basically a coffee cake, but whatever. And I have made coffee ice cream. I did make it beforehand because it does have to freeze pretty solid because it's going to go in the oven. And then to cover it, Baked Alaska served with a meringue, I'm going to do a meringue, but I'm going to flavor it instead of vanilla. I have Armenian cognac.
Ooh.
Wow.
Which, if you could get your hands on this, it's really, really good. It's sort of chocolatey. It's amazing. So that's...
I have a question.
Ooh. Yes.
Before we start, about the ice cream. So you say that you made it yourself. Did you do...
Yes.
Do you have an ice cream, one of those mini home ice cream makers? Did you do the
No.
Ziploc bag with salt?
Yeah, how did you do it?
Wait.
My original plan was to make the ice cream base, put it in the freezer, and then you stir it every half hour or something to keep it from freezing solid, and it's supposed to get all nice and everything. But because I started it kind of late yesterday, it was midnight 30 and it's still not frozen, so I thought, okay, oh no. So the other method that you can use, which I hope has worked, it's been sitting, I haven't checked it, I hope it's good.
Schrodinger's
was
ice cream.
Yeah, let it freeze solid and then put it in a food processor and then put it back in the freezer. And so I'm going to pull it out just for a second.
Yeah, let's have a look. I mean, it's still going to be delicious. It's just the question
Yeah,
of the
it
texture
tastes
of
really,
delicious.
really good.
Yeah. I've tried it before, but not with heavy enough cream, and it didn't
Oh my
work so
God.
great.
You want to
this-
scoop
That
it
looks
with
great,
you can also hold it up here. We can do
Whee!
this.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
This is so much ice cream. And the hilarious thing is, so this is the bowl of ice cream. This is the bowl of my food processor. And you can see I had to freeze it in chunks and then stand here for half an hour this morning, chopping it up and putting it in the food processor.
So try scooping it with a spoon and let's see if it's...
No.
No. All right.
I guess I could. It's got to stay
That's
sort of
good.
flat on the bottom, so
Okay.
it's level.
Okay.
I'll
You
do
could
it.
you could poke it with a spoon.
For the fans.
For the...
Yes.
Give them what they want to see.
Yeah, get that ice cream. Ooh, it's not solid, but it is very ice creamy. No,
Yeah.
don't
No!
don't send it to Hilda. She'll judge me. So we've been going to an Armenian bakery in Poulsbo, which is across Puget Sound from Seattle. And Hilda is the woman who owns it and runs it. And
She's wonderful.
I almost told her, Krista's like her buddy now. I almost said, well, why don't we tell Hilda? And then I was like, no, she's actually Armenian. We're just part. We're not real. Authenticity is a lie. Don't listen to me.
Yeah,
That's just
you're
my anxiety
trying.
talking.
You're putting in the work.
I am. I have to get started making stuff.
Yeah. Is this
I'm
the
gonna
first
make-
time you have innovated? I think so. I think previously you've followed recipes, albeit with tweaks, and this is the first time you've actually you're inventing something on screen for us.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Lasagna didn't really have a recipe. It was just something that I know how to do. But yeah, this is the first time actually doing something. So I'm going to.
This says next stream, invite Hilda. When you're not baking something.
She's great. Gonna make the cake first so it can cool off. And then while it's baking, there's a crumbly, spicy nut topping that goes on it. So I'm gonna make that, and then make the meringue and assemble it, and we'll see. So I'm gonna go melt some butter and shorten it right now.
Okay.
See?
wow.
Hold on. I'll put it. Do that again.
It's not. It's just fat. It doesn't. It's just fat.
It's fat.
It's not interesting.
Oh my god. So I have actually here Jared has been posting about this is the entire clan, or the bottom half of the clan, on an excursion to Hilda, I guess the bakery of Hilda. Is that Hilda's bakery that you guys are going to?
It is, yeah.
And how early in the morning do you have to get up to get there?
Moriah, you want to take this one?
All right, okay. So I guess it depends. It's different for all three of us because first my sister has to go get Jared at like 6:15, and then they come to my house, and then I usually drive us up from there. So I think they get up certainly before 6, and then I am lucky enough to be able to sleep in until about 6:30.
Oh my god. See, I'm a night owl. To me, this is like,
Oh yeah, I'm very much a night owl. So honestly, getting up at even before like 8 is just absolutely horrible for me.
So why is it worth it? Why is it worth the extreme early morning?
Well, obviously, like the stuff that she bakes is super delicious. Like, I haven't had a single bad thing there.
You've just been trawling my Twitter for pictures.
I have.
Yeah. And that coffee.
Explain what we're looking at. Yeah. What is the coffee? Because I was like, is that even coffee or is it melted chocolate? Like, what is that?
Yeah. Okay. So what we're looking at right now, obviously on the left is the coffee. To be honest, I am not 100% sure on how they make it. I think
it's basically the same as Turkish coffee.
Yeah.
That's that process.
That's what I thought. I never actually saw them make it. Anyways, but so it kind of has some grounds on the bottom, but it's still really good. And then on the right, on the bottom is some baklava, and then on the top is some cinnamon cake that Jared ate most of. So
not on purpose. Don't.
We barely got any.
That's not true.
It looks like it was
lie.
Rapidly devoured.
Jared.
By someone.
Jared, how am I lying?
I ate the pointy part. There was a broad part left for you. I did. That is. Stop lying.
Whatever. All right. But the point is, it's a cinnamon cake, and it's got like this kind of shortbread thing on the bottom, and it's really good.
Oh my god. And is that baklava?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. It's honestly the best baklava I've ever had. It's a little bit softer than most of the ones, but yeah, it's still super good.
Nice. So how did you guys start? So first of all, let me ask you, like how many generations back is what is the Armenian connection?
That would be our
family or
on our mom's side, it's our great grandmother. Yeah, she was full Armenian.
Do you but you guys still your family like celebrates some Armenian holidays and stuff like that, right? I know Jared has occasionally said I can't do that on that day because we're doing a thing.
Oh yeah, that
observances or what have you.
Well, Jared, what?
The Genocide Remembrance Day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but we don't really do anything besides that, do we?
Yeah, so there's this, one of the reasons that this is a process of rediscovery rather than just having a heritage is our great-grandmother...
Oh, bad timing.
There's this whole family saga involved with like fleeing the Russian Revolution because of stuff, and then like getting to China where she meets our great-grandfather and they come to America and all that. And part of all of this, there were two things. One is that she was actually in an arranged, not an arranged marriage, but engaged to be married to somebody that she didn't pick out. So when she met our American great-grandfather, she was like, well, see ya, I'm going with him, which caused a lot of problems because Armenia was and still is a very tradition-bound, patriarchal sort of society. So that was the whole thing. But then when at some point after she got to America, she was still part of the community here to some extent. They kind of were weirded out by her breaking this engagement because they just, they find out, I don't know. But then she stopped going to church, which for Armenian Orthodox is a whole thing. Armenia is the oldest Christian nation, all that. There's all this stuff bound up in that. She had a gigantic falling out with that whole thing and left that, and then just decided to be American from then on. So she wouldn't speak Armenian around her children. It was the whole thing. She was very consciously separating herself from this. Not considering that 60 years later or whatever, some of her descendants might actually care about all of this.
We have input from Krista on what the coffee is. Coffee is very finely ground, and the grounds are left in. You kind of drink them. It sounds very intense. It sounds a little bit also like, maybe not quite the same, but Ethiopian coffee, which... I
think there's some similarity, I think.
Yeah. Which is really... I will drink it, and then I will be awake for 48 hours. Because it's
strong.
So question. Maybe Moriah can take this one. How did you discover Hilda?
Oh, actually, I discovered her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Explain.
Yeah. Okay. So it's actually not a very interesting story. So it was a while back. I was like trying to find Armenian bakeries around here or anything Armenian really, because I was like, I was curious. So I only found like one, and I think it's up in Bellevue or something. Anyway, it's like an hour away from me, or 45 minutes or so. And it was pretty good, but they didn't actually have that much that was really Armenian, except for some gata. So,
which is?
Oh, sorry. It's like a bread, like a round bread thingy, and on the inside it's got this filling, which is like kind of sugary, buttery. I don't
it's
really
a
know
little bit like a butterhorn, right? But shaped
man.
differently and everything. It's
maybe
right.
Maybe I don't know. To be honest, I've only had like 2 butterhorns in my life. But yeah, it's really good. I actually have some upstairs, but anyways, that's like the only Armenian thing they had there, and so I was like on the hunt to try and find like something that was more Armenian, or had more Armenian stuff in it, and I eventually found this bakery, but it was like really far away. It's like an hour and a half, depending on traffic, from where I live. So I didn't really get a chance to go up there for a while, until in June when my sister and I, our sister and I, first went. But yeah, it's not that interesting.
But you like have made this like a regular thing where you all go out there and now you know Hilda, like you've like befriended Hilda and stuff.
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool.
Their family is really nice. Honestly, some of my favorite people now.
Wendy and Inbal, have you ever are there food places that you would make a pilgrimage to and like develop a special connection with the food that you can only get there?
Okay, I have one. but it's slightly shameful, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So, okay. When I was a kid in like the 70s, early 80s, growing up in Southern Ontario, Tim Hortons was a thing. And Tim Hortons has since evolved into this sort of like global brand, and it's not the same as it used to be anymore. But it used to be like they had these donuts that were like they weighed as much as bricks, and they were
it used to be much more of a real donut place. Explain for the Americans the mystique of Tim Hortons, just to
exactly. So what happened though? It turns out is so Tim Hortons. Donut shops were born in Hamilton, Ontario, which is the city that I grew up just outside of. And the guy who was the original donut chef, who came up with all the original recipes for like the big, heavy brick-like Tim Hortons donuts, retired from Tim Hortons like 30 years ago or something, and started his own donut shop called Granddad's, which has all of the original Tim Hortons recipes from like the 70s. And it's weirdly, it's like... So we discovered this a couple of years ago from a friend who moved to Hamilton and went there, and it was like a Proustian Madeleine. It was like, you know, you take a bite of this like walnut cruller and it's just like your whole childhood comes flooding back. So my husband was actually just there a couple days, yesterday actually, visiting his mom. And so he picked us up some donuts from Granddad's. We hadn't had them in like a year or so. And that's right. Yeah, Tim Hortons has expanded to the States. That's right. And they had them in New York. And one of the things about it that's kind of obnoxious is that now a lot of Canadians kind of treat Tim Hortons as like a stand-in for a national identity. So it'll be like, you know, wave the flag, we're going to Tim's, and it's a whole thing.
Not even Canadian owned anymore. Like the
no, exactly. Yeah, it's like it's anyway. I don't totally approve of that, but I do have this sort of deep visceral response to Granddad's OG Tim Hortons donuts. So yeah, we just got some the other day. And once again, it was the same thing. Like suddenly I'm like, you know, 10 years old in the back of my mom's beige K car, you know, like it's so yeah, that's mine. Granddad's Donuts, Hamilton, Ontario.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you? And oops.
Yeah, I accidentally closed it. I was trying to do something in it.
Oh, okay.
Oh no. I was having a conversation about this recently too, or I've been having a few conversations like this because I had a couple friends over for tea, and one of them, we got onto talking about like chanterelle mushrooms, which right now, at least in my area, it's sort of like chanterelle mushroom season. And a friend of mine in town says she has like a secret place that she won't tell any of us where she's been finding chanterelle mushrooms in town, which is like unheard of. I have no idea where it could be. But then another friend of mine shared a story about how she was like in Newfoundland like years ago with a friend of hers and some like, you know, her aunt and uncle or something, and how none of them had ever had these mushrooms before, but they found some chanterelle mushrooms on like a hike, and her aunt made this mushroom soup. And now her friend is like, what was the recipe for that mushroom soup? Like, I'm trying to recreate this like amazing magical soup. She's like, it wasn't a recipe. Like, we just found these things and my aunt made a soup. But her friend is like a chef now and is trying to like recreate this thing to try and like go back in time. It's like a time travel thing almost. I'm really interested in this idea of like eating a food as like trying to time travel kind of thing.
The recipe is a portal to the past. Yeah.
yeah, totally. And I'm like, I'm very Jewish. I'm probably like the only very Jewish person in Lunenburg right now. And when I lived in New York for a while, and there were a lot of places there that I don't know, off the top of my head, I can't think of one right now, but like a lot of places that I kind of must have taken for granted of just like, go get some like matzo ball soup or some smoked salmon on a bagel or something, because there were just so many everywhere that now I'm like, yeah, I need to, anytime I can make a pilgrimage to get some like really good everything bagel with some shmia, some cream cheese, and some like smoked salmon and capers, that'll probably be the first food pilgrimage I do.
What's the closest? Is there like a place in Halifax that does a proper bagel, or would you have to have them flown in?
Probably.
From Montreal?
I haven't been to Halifax. My dad actually grew up in Halifax. Like my dad and my grandparents, like my grandma lived in Halifax since she wasn't born there, but she grew up there since like 1930s. So I'm sure there's places there that have that kind of thing, but I don't know yet. I haven't sought them out because I've stayed. So I don't have a car, which is pretty necessary in a small town like where I have to venture outside. But yeah, I'll be on the lookout.
Where do you stand, Inbal, on the great Montreal versus New York bagel controversy?
Oh my god. Okay. Well, obviously, like having lived in New York for so long, I'm gonna say New York. I know it's a thing. Like it's just different. Like the reason New York thing, they always say it's like in the water because the tap water in New York actually comes from like a reservoir in the Catskill Mountains.
Wow.
Depending on where you are. Like I did a whole thing about the like New York City watershed, and yeah, it comes down. Anyway, so that it's just like its own thing. And I think obviously New Yorkers have a lot of pride. Like that's like the one thing everyone knows is like New York pizza's the best. New York bagels the best. New York, blah, 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 blah. Like it's, you know, okay, we get it. Like living in
my brother lived in New York for about a year for a job, and he started an Instagram account specifically for New York pizza slices. So it's still out there somewhere. Oh my god! It's like my brother eating like 30 different kinds of New York pizza.
There is
a guy. I know about this bagel debate. What is this bagel debate?
Yeah, what's the difference? Explain the difference, Inbal, is if you can, between like what a. My understanding is that the Montreal ones are like the chewier, skinnier ones, and the New York ones are kind of puffier.
Yeah, the New York ones, they have like it's like thicker bagel with a smaller bagel hole, I guess. And yeah, like fluffier, like they're thicker.
Really like Lillian H is a New Yorker.
Yeah. Fight anyone, yeah, to the death. No. That's the thing too, is that I feel like Montreal, they have their own like insider bagel disputes in Montreal. And I don't even know if they're like in a fight with New York about like their bagels being better than New York bagels because they're so focused on like, do you go for the Saint-Viateur bagel or the, you know, whatever? Any Montrealers in the chat I forget the other, there's like two big bagel places that are feuding within Montreal. Yeah, and that's like a big thing on its own. And New York people with their bagels are just like, screw Montreal, like, screw their little feud. Ours are the best anyway. And yeah, they're like thicker and fluffier. I feel like the Montreal bagel is like denser somehow.
Yeah, it's chewy, and they also like they boil it. I mean, like I think they're both boiled, but the Montreal ones are like boiled in malt water or something, and they're very like chewy outer crust, and yeah, it's a different experience. It's a different bagel experience.
Yeah,
my air conditioner on, but I think it might be too loud. But Jared, by the way, this is amazing that we can actually see what you're doing. This is like, Librarian Kate concedes or holds up the idea that we are that the Montreal bagels are very dense. But yeah, Jared, we can see what you're doing, which is amazing. So what actually is this the coffee cake part of the component?
Yeah, this is the Madzun spice cake. Madzun is just Armenian for yogurt, apparently. So I have put in the eggs and the melted butter and shortening, and now I'm adding the dry ingredients, which is just flour, baking powder, baking soda, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg. So this year, what's that rumbling?
That's
like not mine.
No, that was a motorcycle going by. Sorry.
Okay, where on the continent is that motorcycle? It's in Nova Scotia.
Can triangulate it.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jared, is there a particular spice mixture that is classically Armenian, or?
Well, so this is really interesting to me. The last time we were at the bakery and we were talking to Hilda, she said that a lot of Armenian food is actually not really heavily flavored. Like they don't use a ton of spices and stuff. If they do kebabs or whatever, it's like salt and pepper. But I don't think she said this, but I heard this from other sources. Cinnamon is really prevalent there.
Yeah, I saw.
And that's basically it.
That you left a few crumbs of for Moriah.
Yeah, cinnamon is really big there. And like there are cultural differences within Armenia because it's been conquered and divided and reconstituted and conquered again and divided again. Like there's one fun factoid that I really love is that somebody tried to map Armenia throughout its history, and a lot of countries change borders a lot, but it needed like 80 different maps just for this one little country, whereas something like, I don't know, England has been the same for forever. Anyway, so that like Iranian Armenians use a lot of saffron because that's a big Iranian thing, that kind of thing. But cinnamon on its own is just typical.
I'm just gonna. We have this plug came up. So, by the way, if you've just wandered in and are watching Jared stir the cake, we are part of Megaphonic, which is a Twitch channel that does all kinds of interesting things, including crossword puzzles with Chris on a regular basis, and we have a games night on Friday night. If you want to tune in and watch me and Jared and a bunch of other people make terrible puns and things like that, and drawing games.
Hey, my puns are amazing.
Oh, I mean, yeah, but they're funnier when they're not. And Megaphonic is also a podcast network, so check out megaphonic.fm for podcasts. Fancy little shows. My show is on permanent hiatus. Jared is part of a show called By the Bywater that talks about Tolkien. So these are all things you can explore if you enjoy what you're seeing today. And I was going to ask, other than the spices or lack of spices, Jared, is there a particular is there a really characteristically Armenian flavor or ingredient or dish? Like the one thing that everyone would kind of wave around as the characteristic thing? I mean, after you just explained
I see Moriah laughing in the corner.
Okay, I'm gonna give Moriah.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to take over the spotlight. I was just, I thought my first thought was just meat.
Yeah, a lot of meat.
They eat a lot of meat.
Stuffed
Is it
peppers
like Spain
are a
where
big
you
thing?
have sorry, I was just gonna ask if it's like Spain where you get every dish has to have 3 or 4 kinds of meat in it. Like one kind of meat is not enough.
I honestly, I don't know. I just know that they eat a lot of meat, whether it's just a ton of beef or a ton of lamb. They just, meat is everywhere.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jared, you're going to say something.
I don't. I think I said stuffed peppers were a big thing.
Yes, stuffed peppers.
Oh, yeah.
Stuffed with meat?
Yeah, meat and rice.
Yeah.
There's a specific bread that's from Armenia, lavash, which is a flatbread that's very Armenian.
Yeah.
Choreg, which is an Easter bread, which is flavored with malab, which is a ground cherry seed.
Oh wow, that's not something I've heard of before. What does it taste like? Is it like?
I've never had it. There is a spice shop in Seattle that sells it, but I haven't made it out there to get it yet. But I really want to try it.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's sort of almondy, sort of almost like anise seed, that kind of thing.
Wow, cool. I was going to say, I was thinking whether I have an answer to the places that I would make a pilgrimage to. There's a bunch. I mean, one of the fun things about Toronto is that you probably can find a specialty store selling whatever cuisine ingredients you're interested in. And I do miss being able to go to Scarborough, which is, I think, has been, identified by the United Nations as one of the most multicultural regions, neighborhoods, cities on Earth.
Scarborough, really?
Scarborough, yeah. I forget the details, but just in terms of like, I can't remember what that was measuring. But yeah, it's very multicultural. Let's just put it that way. You can go out there and you find a grocery store for anything you were looking for, and there's some amazing like Middle Eastern and South Asian stores. My dad, my dad's side of the family is Bangladeshi, and my dad lives out in Scarborough, and a bunch of my family members do as well. And I do miss the Bangladeshi supermarket that is near his place. But I also miss. I realized just recently I can probably get to Benna's, which Wendy will know what Benna's is. It's on Roncesvalles. It's the Polish supermarket.
Oh, yeah.
So Roncesvalles is like a street that is like the traditional Polish neighborhood in Toronto, and I don't have any particular connection to Polish heritage, but it is, they have amazing, they have frozen pierogies, they have all kinds of amazing jams and fruit syrups and stuff like that, and they have something that I became mildly obsessed with a couple years ago, is weird coffee substitutes. like
chicory
Oh
or
yeah,
whatever.
that's right. Yeah, you were doing that for a while. Yeah,
Cool.
I was, and there was a really good one out of Switzerland that was my favorite, and then of course as soon as I discovered it, they stopped making it. But there's a lot of good ones out of basically like former Eastern Bloc countries, because during the Soviet era they couldn't get coffee, and so they were all like concocting the best substitutes that they could out of whatever they could actually grow regionally. So you go to Benna's and you can get these little packages that are just all labeled in Polish and have like pictures of wholesome Polish farmers on them and their families, and they're basically like roasted chicory and 6 kinds of grains, and you brew it. This is the thing, you got to get the coffee substitutes that you brew like coffee, because there are also the ones that you mix, and they like, it's like the difference between real coffee and instant coffee. Like the mixing ones are I have not gotten into them, but the ones that you actually like put in your filter drip and brew like coffee, they don't taste like coffee, but they taste like something that is like in the same flavor family as coffee and is also good. And the great thing is, like, I get insomnia really easy, so I can't drink coffee after like noon, or I'm going to be awake forever. So this is something that I can like drink all night if I'm working. I would love to be able to drink coffee while I'm working. I can't, because then I will not sleep. But I can drink the fake coffee. Yeah, and it's there's also there's the Polish ones, which have like the sort of like wholesome farmer packaging, and then there's the like California ones that have carob in it, and they're kind of like 70s, and they taste kind of like
like the 70s. The carob is the flavor of the 70s. It's like
the 70s.
Yeah.
So there are all these different kinds. Fake coffee. So yeah, I'm gonna get out there at some point and get.
Have you ever, Nadia or Wendy, I guess, been to? There's a place in Leslieville in Toronto, over, I guess that's the east side.
That's near where Chris lives. Uncle Rangles is in Leslieville.
Yeah, it's where Rafiq, where my partner used to live, lived in Toronto. And there's a place called Hastings Snack Bar.
Yes, that is right behind, that is literally like right behind Chris's house.
It's
okay, what's the deal with it? I feel like I've heard of this, but I've never been there. What's the deal?
It's so it's like a little Polish food. It's a little Polish food place, but it's like a snack bar, because they have the space. There's like, it's attached to like a Polish barber shop next door.
Oh, wow.
And it's just a lunch counter. So like there's no actual place to sit down. I don't know how it's doing in the COVID times, but I think it has reopened. But I don't know, because it's like just a counter with maybe like 7 little stools on one side, and then the whole kitchen is on the other side. But they have like everything that they need back there, and usually it's just this like mom, I guess, named this like Polish lady named Anya, and then a guy named Dan who's like just making coffee back there, and he's always like slinging, like if you're there at the end of the day, I think they were closing at 3, and he would always like kind of hassle me and be like, "You want a donut?" I was like, "No, I don't know. I can't get a donut." Like,
Oh yeah, because they do those like
donut.
Polish filled donuts that are as big as your head and have jam in them.
Yeah, and they're
Oh yeah, those are good.
flavored donuts, and they also, of course, have like all the pierogies, and I think they have cabbage rolls that are really good there, Polish cabbage rolls, and they have both. I think it's a like Polish thing. They have savory pierogies and sweet pierogies.
Nice.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it. It's a really cool place. It's very small, and I hope they're doing well.
That's
And
like
everything-
a field trip.
Yeah. And we could like Chris could join us because he lives right there, and I know that they like to go there on weekends and get the donuts and stuff. Jared, are those almonds?
These are walnuts.
Oh, walnuts.
Walnuts
And those are
are a
for-
very typical ingredient of not just
Right,
Armenian, but a lot of Caucasian cuisine, like Georgian or whatever.
Ooh. Georgian food is another cool.
There's some overlap. I mean, they're right there. So, and actually, our great grandmother lived in Tbilisi for a while.
Ooh, cool.
It sounds like she was all over the map.
She
This
was.
sounds like a real character, a real matriarch.
Yeah.
The
She
world
was, from what I hear, never met her.
San Diego.
Go figure. Oh my gosh, a little before your time. Anyone in the comments, if you want to pipe up with a favorite food that you go out on. Oh, Krista is talking about a nice Swedish lunch of rye crackers and pickled herrings. Oh my gosh!
that sounds so good.
My mom's side of the family is Dutch, and yeah, the pickled herrings on a bun. It's like the street hot dog of the Netherlands. It's broche haring. It's like you get they have like carts and you can get like a bun with like a herring on it. And I also really like and eels. You would not think, but eels are very tasty, and they have like yes, pickled and roasted eels on buns as well.
Swedish
And now
is
I'm
our
hungry.
other big cultural
Oh, I see.
Oh yeah.
component. I don't know. What am I trying to say?
Has anyone in your family done like genealogy? Like
Oh, yeah.
the
My
family
mom's
tree?
mom
Hmm.
is big into genealogy. She's the one that the Swedish comes through, and she's traced that family tree back to like the 17th century.
Oh, amazing.
The other side, the Armenian side, we can only trace to my great grandmother's father because they changed their name to evade pursuit.
Ha.
So we're like, we can get back to this guy, and then after that, it's like, I don't know, maybe we have an ancestor named this. Who knows?
They change it at I'm gonna blank on the name of the island now. The point
Ellis
of entry
Island?
into New York City. Ellis Island. Yeah. Was it
No,
Ellis
they
Island?
actually, when she came to the U.S., she came through San Francisco.
Mhm.
But they changed the name way before that because they were trying to get out of Russia. They were too rich to be allowed to live.
Oh, too.
Yes. It was when I brought this up once on Twitter, like she had to like flee the Bolsheviks for her life kind of thing. People were like, basically saying, oh, well, she should have just stayed there and died because she was rich. And I was like, she was 12. You're saying my great grandmother was guilty for all of, like, yes, she like inherited wealth, that kind of thing. She was a bystander in a sense, but like
She wouldn't know. Like
she was 12. Like I don't
Oh, dear.
agree with
Twitter.
the social order pre-revolution, but I'm also like, you're talking about my great grandmother.
Twitter is free.
Simmer down.
Who was, by the way, a child. Like
She was a child, and she actually, her father, who was a wealthy person in the Tbilisi sort of area, did work with the White Russians against the Bolsheviks kind of thing. Like they would have resistance meetings at his house, that sort of thing. He would send her out with guns under her coat to get them away from inspectors coming to the house, that kind of thing. She was involved, but she was also a child whose father was having her do these things. So I get a little irritated by people being like, oh, she was fleeing the Bolsheviks. She must have sucked then. It's like, no, they were going to kill her. It was don't do this.
Oh,
history is
Twitter.
And that's why they changed the name.
Wow.
it's fair, like when you look at it that way, it's like, yeah, that was probably the right thing to do. you know.
Do you know if there was a
Yeah.
meaning behind the name that they picked, or was it just something that they
No,
thought
they
sounded
picked the most
blend in?
common Armenian.
Yeah,
They picked
yeah.
the equivalent of Smith.
Nice. Oh man. I feel like now is a good time to completely change gears and ask about Moriah and Wendy, your cats. Are they there? Can we see the cats?
My cat's mad because I took her chair to do this.
Oh.
She has me. Oh, so I can show you the chair. Hold on. So there's this chair
without the cat in it.
without the cat. So that's where she sleeps all day. And I was like, no, I'm taking the chair today. And now she's gone. She's mad. She's not talking to me. She might come in though. She's quite needy, so she might come in at some point and parade in front of the camera. Usually she does when there's a camera on at some point.
I see. But you have multiple cats though.
Yeah, we
It's
have
not just
4.
one
Yeah.
cat. 4
Yeah,
cats.
this is the particular cat that lives in this room of the house, and then there are other cats in other rooms of the house.
Oh, I see.
They have their own rooms.
They've kind of claimed their own territories. Like we have a big sort of living room on the main floor, and it's a small house with it's like a little warren of rooms. And so they mostly hang out. Everybody mostly hangs out in the living room. Like if we're in the living room, then the cats are probably in the living room with us. But when we sort of scatter throughout the house, as we're doing right now, they each sort of have a zone that they've kind of declared for their own. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. There are 2 sort of big male stray cats who we took in at different times over the last few years, who are sort of in a constant turf war. So if one of them is in one room, the other one will follow, and they'll just growl at each other. From room to room around the house.
Toxic masculinity.
Toxic masculinity. You wouldn't think, but it's totally true.
Are they fixed? And
everybody's fixed. Yeah. But they're still they still have strong feelings about each other and about each other's places in the hierarchy. And yeah, exactly. There's this little cat? Sorry. Yeah. Well, okay. So this is interesting. So apparently, a friend of mine used to date a vet, and the vet told her all kinds of things about cats. And so one thing I learned was, apparently, cats organize their hierarchy by weight.
So Socrates ought to be the dominant cat.
Well, actually, Eddie is even bigger than Socrates. So he's the alpha cat. And then Socrates is very nearly as big as Eddie. So this is why I think they're having so much conflict right now. They're about half a pound apart.
I feel like I met Socrates and he was quite spherical for a cat.
He's chunky. He was really skinny when he came to us. He was like basically a little cat skeleton, but within like 2 months he was like a football. So yeah, he's sort of, they both sort of balanced out. So they're both like kind of massive cats, but they're not injuring themselves with their massiveness anymore, which they kind of were at first. We got that under control. But yeah, it's definitely like there's a definite hierarchy, and it's totally by size. And the one who hangs out in my office, the one whose chair I took, is the littlest one. And so she's just such a sad little, dainty little princess of a thing. Yeah, so I feel kind of bad taking her seat because this is like the one thing that she has in life.
Oh no!
I know. It's endless. I've got to say though, if you want endless drama and lots of things to have feelings about, then get 4 cats.
I would love to have a cat.
So do you have allergies or?
No, I'm not allowed to have them here.
Oh yeah, that's actually, this is literally why we got our house. Because we were in an apartment before this where we couldn't have cats, and we were so frustrated not having cats that we like moved to a house so that we could have cats. Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it.
I feel like I say this once a month to whoever I'm talking to, but like they change. There are other people in my building who have pets because they changed the rules the month before I moved in.
That's not fair.
I see people walking their dogs. My upstairs neighbor, I see him through his window. He's got a white cat like a Bond villain. And I'm just sitting here with like a ghost, and that's all I've got.
I feel okay. I want to hear about the ghost. I think you should just lie and get a cat and then be like, yeah, I moved here a month before you think I moved here.
He was here when I got here.
He was here when I got here.
Yeah.
He was hiding. He was in the cupboard.
He was hiding. He was in the cupboard. He's grandfathered in. You could call him grandfather. And then
Aww.
Right? Wouldn't that be a cute name for granddad? Grandpa.
Moriah, is Crab around?
He's upstairs.
Okay.
Oh.
So I would
What is his full name?
His full name? Okay, that's actually
Yes, tell his full name.
Okay, so that's a point of debate with me and myself.
Yes.
for a while I had a really hard time settling on a name. Currently I tell people that his name is Crab Rangoon, which is technically correct. But I'm still kind of flip-flopping between that being like his full name or one of my original thoughts, which was just combining a bunch of names that I had thought of. And it ended up being like Lady Catherine de Burger King Crab Cakes or Crab Rangoon or something like that. And just to like create kind of a flow. So I still haven't fully decided.
They're both very like high status names. I imagine if you were a cat and that was your name, you'd probably feel really good about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
He has a big ego.
ego.
He has a big ego, so he would probably enjoy that.
If you are watching and want to post your favorite cat names that you have heard in the chat, I will put them on the screen.
I do really like Crab Rangoon as a name for a cat. It's really catchy.
I still remember my brother had a friend in high school who had a cat named Cuddlecake Spoofer, which is just a name that you can't forget once you've heard it. Oh, and I think one of my favorites is Rebecca, who has been on the stream a couple times. Her kids were allowed to name the cat that they got when the kids were small. I think the cat was named by like a 4-year-old, and the cat's name is Hero Cat. Hero Cat.
That's a good name too.
It is a good name. Inbal briefly returned, and then she had a timer go off, and we'll have to have her explain. While she's doing that, oh yes, here we go. Here we go. Estelle Getty.
Estelle Getty. Wait, okay, is Estelle Getty a person I should know? Like that's the name sort of is ringing a bell, but I don't know.
That's the real thing. Golden Girls, right? That's Sophia.
Okay,
Isn't
yes,
it?
yeah.
So,
I just didn't know the last name. That's okay, yeah.
Oh, my friend Sabrina adopted a rescue dog recently and named it Francis Ford Coppola.
That's very nice. And you can go a lot of places with that. Like you could go Frankie, for sure.
I think Franny to her friends. But
Franny,
yeah,
that's
Francis
nice.
Ford
Nice.
Coppola.
That's amazing.
Jared, so you don't have a cat, but you have a ghost. I think you need to expand on that.
I do have a ghost.
Yes.
It hasn't been around for a little while that I've noticed it actually. Every so often it just wanders through. Much like a cat, I suppose. I don't know. There's just sometimes if you're alone, you can feel yourself being watched from a specific corner. He went to super hell.
Surprise, the ghost you have is Castiel.
Yeah. But there have been times where I've been sitting alone in a room with the windows shut. There's no earthquakes happening, nothing, and something behind me will just fall over or fall off of something, like a cat pushes it. And I'm just like,
could it be the ghost of a cat?
It could be. It happened a lot more when I had first moved in, and now I think maybe if there is a ghost, I don't know. I don't want to commit. It might be used to me and is no longer trying to irritate me. I don't know, but there was a period there where I was like, do I need to sage or put out little offerings? I don't know. What do you want from me? I just live here.
Board, ask it what it wants.
Yeah, what's preventing you from moving on to the light?
Do you get a sense of its
child from a '90s movie who can see dead people and we'll tell you what the ghost wants. Sorry, Wendy.
Like they'd be in like their 40s now, right? So they're probably around, probably looking for work. Do you get a sense of the ghost's personality? Like, do you feel like there's something there to relate to, or is it just noises and a feeling?
I think it just wants attention. I really feel like if there is a ghost, and I don't know how much of this is me just being like, wouldn't it be fun to have one, and how much is actually like just unexplained stuff. I don't know. I feel like it probably is a cat or something. It's not a poltergeist. It's not angry. It just was like, oh, you know what you've done for too long is ignore me, and then it'll knock something over or drop a ping. I don't have a ping pong ball in here, and yet several times I've heard a ping pong ball fall on a hard surface.
Oh wow!
It is so bizarre.
It's definitely a cat ghost in that case, because that is a cat-related sound, right? Like a ping pong ball dropping and getting knocked around.
Yeah, it's weird.
That is weird. That is really weird. I'm curious.
Sorry, just
Oh, yeah.
random name.
A stuffed penguin named Monterey Jack is very good. I just wanted, sorry, I don't mean to sort of take this over, but I am very interested in ghosts and people's stories about ghosts. So if anyone else has any stories about ghosts, I'd like to hear them, if that's okay.
I remember when I was a kid, that book that I think it was Reader's Digest put out, Strange Stories, Amazing Facts, and it's just full of just all sorts of creepy nonsense. Like the faces of that town in Belize, the faces of Belize, where they just like these faces appear on the floor and they can't be scrubbed away, that kind of thing. I read that as like a 6-year-old and went, no, I can't deal with this.
I loved those books when I was little, and I would read them and then not be able to sleep because I was like paralyzed in fear of the thing that was in my room that I was sure was there. Okay, hang on. We got Ned. Ned is weighing in. Hi
Ned.
Hi Ned.
Ned is one of my co-hosts. Sorry.
The name of the cat was. Are you ready for this? Are you ready?
Oh.
Okay, T.S. Eliot.
Gypsy, Den, Fleur, Cecil, Rilla, Clarabelle, Thomas, Cat.
I was about to ask.
Covering all the bases.
His many friends called him Candle Ends, his enemies toasted cheese. That's from one of the, it's from Lewis Carroll, but I forget which one. Any other ghost stories? Inbal, I feel like you might have been on like haunted vessels at some point.
Yeah, there was
the
so
all of Nova Scotia is haunted.
I do have a ghost story.
Let's hear it.
Well, so yeah, as I've mentioned on previous kitchen parties, I was on a ship that is out of Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, called the Picton Castle. And the history of the history of the ship that I was a sailor on, among other ships, is that it is, unlike a lot of tall ships that are actually somewhat recently built. If you go to like a festival and see a tall ship, there's like a good chance that some of them will be really old and some will actually be built in like the 80s or 90s or 2000s or whatever. But the ship I was on was actually from the 1920s. And in the 40s, it was a minesweeper. So it was originally from Wales. And in World War II, it was designated basically like in the war effort as a minesweeper for the UK, whatever. And at one point, it did hit a mine. And there's evidence in some areas in the engine room that you can see where like it hit a mine. So like this part of the stairs is wonky and there's like a blast in the side that they had to like re-weld and the engine was, messed up or whatever. And apparently the engineer at the time was on the step basically going down to the engine room when they hit a mine and he fell backwards. Lost his balance and apparently died from that. And so because he was, I guess, I don't know if he was like a official like British Navy engineer at the time or just happened to be on this minesweeper of a ship as the engineer. But it is alleged, I haven't seen him myself, that at night when it's dark in the engine room, they call him Mr. Roundhead. And say that he haunts the engine room at night. And when you're doing, people have to stand watches like 24 hours a day. So when you're there at night, there are no lights on because the other people that are sleeping, I know Mr. Roundhead. Roundhead is like, I guess, a name for the British soldiers in World War II. But it's still a terrifying name. And then when you're on watch and it's like 2:30 and you have to do a ship check to make sure everything is like okay, like no leaks or fires or whatever, and you go through the engine room at night, instead of a white light, They don't want to blind people or like make you lose your night vision. So they have a red light in the engine room instead, which makes everything super sinister and creepy. And it's like completely silent because everyone's asleep. So you're like hearing like water drips in this greasy, creepy engine room as you're like looking for the ghost of Mr. Roundhead.
It's like an A24 movie. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
Oh my god.
So that's I've never had an encounter, but that is my story, my ghost story.
That's pretty close to an encounter.
I don't have an encounter of my own, but I just remembered I heard a really good ghost story. So this is secondhand, but it was a good one, and I heard it recently. So I'm just going to tell you. I was at not a party, but a Zoom party, which is what passes for parties these days. And one of the other people at the party worked at the ROM, or had worked at the ROM until quite recently. And the ROM, of course, is haunted as heck. So the ROM, for those of you not in Toronto, is the Royal Ontario Museum, and it's a large like natural history museum about. I'm gonna do this and be like, it's like a 10-minute walk that way from where I am. But yeah, so it's like a Victorian museum, and it used to have a planetarium right next to it. And so the thing is, where the planetarium used to be, prior to that, there was a house in like the 1910s or something. And apparently, I don't know if the house burned down, but like there was a family living in the house, and everyone in the family perished at the same time through some catastrophe. So the story was that this woman, this acquaintance of mine who was working at the ROM, and was in the office one day, and this very level-headed woman who is one of the building managers, site managers, came in and was like, the work is behind. The restoration on this part of the building is behind, and it's behind because I can't get the contractors to come in. It's supposed to be happening like around the clock, and I can't get this one contractor to come back at night. Like he won't come back at night, and he won't work alone. And it turned out the reason that he would not come back at night and work alone was that he had been in there working alone, fixing part of the ceiling in one of the hallways late at night. And he looked down and saw a child run across the hallway from one gallery into another gallery, and he was like, "Well, that can't be right." So he called the building manager, and the building manager was like, "Was it a little girl? Was she about 6 years old with blonde hair?" And he said, "Yes." And the building manager was like, "That's fine. We see her sometimes." And the contractor was like, I'm done. I'm out here. But the interesting thing about this story is that it's actually like there's work that's behind on the ROM because this guy won't come back.
Okay, I kind of have a similar story to that one, just like an addendum. So apparently this is a thing. So Casa Loma is a big old mansion in Toronto that's sort of been turned into a museum. And I was doing some work there. This is like 10, 12 years ago, where I was talking to like the head of PR for Casa Loma, and I was in his office, which was sort of like in like an upper floor, like sort of back part of the building. And we met at like 3:30, and he was like, "I'm sorry, but we're going to have to leave by 5. So we're going to have to keep this short." And I was like, "Oh, so why?" And he said, "Well, there's a ghost. I really don't like to be here after 5 because she usually comes by about 5:30 or 6, and she's really scary." And now I don't know for sure. Like he didn't like introduce the conversation this way. It sort of dropped in partway through. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to wrap up soon because of the ghost." And I'd like to think that he was sort of making it up and he just wanted to go because he was meeting someone at a bar or something. But he seemed very sincere and earnest. He described the ghost. It was a woman in a long dress who would sort of float down the hall, and she would float like at a specific time of day. She would float down the hall sort of towards his office, and he'd never stuck around long enough to see where she went. But he'd seen her a few times, and he was really scared of her. So
as one would be.
Yeah, as one would be, right? And he seemed like a very sensible guy. Like he didn't seem anyway. So that was So your Toronto historic. Ooh.
So we have another Pechacek family encounter. Creepy feelings, motion lights turning on and off.
Seattle has so much ghost stuff.
Seattle's very haunted as well. Yeah.
Seattle. Well, I mean, first of all, it's settled. It's colonized territory. Like you got that going on, but like all the serial killers from here.
Oh, really? Is that a
Um,
Seattle thing?
Oh, you just
There's so many serial killers around
there was,
Seattle.
like
Really?
you posted this Ted Bundy connection.
Yeah, Ted
Yeah.
Bundy used to live down the street from me.
Yeah.
All that, but like there's in Pike Place Market. So Seattle, for those who don't know, was named after a chief of a tribe that was forced off their land to build the city. And his daughter Angeline used to live on the waterfront near Pike Place Market. And yeah, she still lives there. People will see her in the market and they'll be like, who's that native woman? Because she clearly she's not from this time period. But who was that? And then she's gone, but she'll just be in the market.
Wow.
And she doesn't do anything. She's just there. And there's that. There's Starvation Heights is not too far away from here, which is that hospital where this doctor starved people to death.
Oh no.
Ooh.
It was like she was doing it to get their money. She'd be like, come to my medical compound or whatever. This is like 1900 or something. And I'll put you on this special diet. All of your problems will be solved. Just come live with me for a little bit. So
she didn't lie.
Well, yeah. So people would come and she would put them on this diet that was just, like water and a nut or something. And of course, they don't feel any better. And she's like, well, you got to keep at it. This is just, the toxins or whatever people say nowadays, but in 20s speak, whatever it was. And she would, attach herself to them emotionally until by the time they were ready to die, she'd be like, what you should do is put me in your will. So that was how she made all of her money, was from people dying under her care. And I don't know, it was so many people and nobody caught on until, I can't remember, but like somebody specific went missing and people were like, that's not, she wouldn't die that way. That doesn't make, or like, why would this person leave this doctor everything she had? I think it was this weird, nobody until then suspected anything. I don't know.
Wow.
But yeah, I think the house was turned into a bed and breakfast at some point, and it's like one of the most haunted locations in the U.S. or something.
I think there was on the podcast Lore. I think there's a good episode about that. Like I think I had heard about that before, and I think it was because of that, an episode on that podcast.
Yeah, it's pretty well known. The underground as well is allegedly haunted.
Oh yeah, like this is something I learned recently about Seattle. Is it has an underground. Like not just the train system, but there's like an underlayer too.
There's a whole other city down there.
What?
It's like,
So the landscape of Seattle, as you see it today, is extremely artificial. They pushed half of a hill into the water to make the waterfront, all of that. But before all of that happened, it was like 1880, I think. There was the Great Seattle Fire, which destroyed stuff. They rebuilt at some point. I think there was a flood. I can't remember the sequence of events, but the level that everything was built at ended up not being the level of the street. They had to put the streets up one story. So for a long time in Seattle, in Pioneer Square, which was the heart of the old city, the streets would be up here, and you would have to go down the ladder to get into the saloon or wherever you were going.
Wow.
And finally, they decided this is really inconvenient. So they they covered up that empty space between the street and the buildings with sidewalks. So when you walk in the old part of the city now, you can see parts of the sidewalk have these little purple squares, and that's magnesium glass. And if you're under that, you're looking up, you see light through them, and that's how you tell where the underground is.
What?
And it's so weird. And it was used, I think people used it for bootlegging or something in the 20s because it's not very accessible. You can get there from some basements, I think, and that's about it. You can go on tours there, and parts of it are haunted, obviously. You can go past where the old brothel was that Mother Damnable ran.
Mother Damnable.
Awesome
yes.
name. Oh my God.
They called her that because she was the madam of this brothel and all that.
Yeah.
And apparently she was like really good to her employees. It was like a really good place to work if you were doing sex work in the city, which Not every frontier town could boast that at the time. And anybody who like hurt her girls or anything, she would chase them out with stones and dogs and cursing in like 6 languages. And that's why they called her Mother Damnable, because she said so many swear words all the time.
Mother Damnable sounds like the name of a madam in a musical.
Yeah.
And then when they
really
moved
great
her
picture
coffin
also.
after she died, she was buried, I think where a park is now, and they had to dig up everybody and move them. When they dug her up, she had turned to stone. Is the legend.
This is that modification thing where they...
That was actually what happened, but because nobody quite understood at the time what saponification of a corpse was.
So wait, what is saponification of a corpse? This is the first I've ever heard of this.
I have a feeling, Jared, that you know all about this research?
I do, actually. So saponification is the fat in the human body essentially just turns to soap.
But why? Why though?
Well, soap is a chemical reaction between fat and alkali, I believe.
Okay.
So if a corpse is buried in certain conditions with like alkali water coming through the coffin or whatever, it will convert the fat into soap, which means if you pull that corpse out later, they don't look decayed because everything is still full
of soap.
Yeah, well, like they haven't shriveled because they have solidified. So I think there's a theory that a few saints that are like, incorruptible and therefore blessed are actually just saponified corpses because nobody knew what that was in the Middle Ages or whenever they were dug up. So it happened to her.
Can you wash them? Can you take a shower?
I assume so, but I don't think you would want to.
Yeah, but Mother Damnable.
Yeah.
So
oh, I'm sure that
is that how I guess bog bodies are a similar thing?
Oh, yeah.
I think
or do they get cured?
They get cured more than they get saponified.
Cured.
Oh, okay.
Like
so leather.
They are leather. They aren't soap.
Tan. I can't help thinking that if there was a saponified saint's corpse, then there would be people very invested in bathing with it as a way of like.
Yeah. Well, if they don't know that's what it is, then they wouldn't try it. But yeah, if they had known, they would have tried it in the Middle Ages. Like you're going on a pilgrimage to Canterbury or whatever, get a piece of Thomas Becket to take a shower with. I'm hungry.
Yeah, how's the food
Can't wait
going?
to try that.
Yeah. Speaking of, let's check in with you about where are we? Speaking of terrifying foods.
Yeah.
Or hopefully not terrifying. So you're baking
done pretty soon.
Okay.
I have made. This is. This is the topping for the cake, so it'll have a sort of crunchy nuts caramel layer over it. And it tastes really good. I ate a little bit of it, and it's fine. I will make the meringue soon.
Sorry, your sister says.
I promise nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I think we all need to make that mistake for ourselves.
It's so interesting that things that can happen to the human body.
There's a book called Stiff that I think I don't have because I
I haven't read it, but I keep meaning to because this
really
kind of
good.
stuff fascinates
Very Roach.
Things that happen to the human body after it is dead. The afterlife of the body itself. She also wrote a book called Spook, which is about the afterlife of the putative afterlife of the spirit. But it's like a companion volume, so she covered both bases of it.
Oh wow! Sorry, I just googled saponification.
You did it, didn't you?
And you know how Google has those little lists of questions that other people have googled that are related. So the second one is, how did the soap lady died? Which I just like that. That's the search.
That was badly formed.
That soap lady we all know about.
Right. How is the soap lady died? Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Okay, so does anyone want to talk about their art?
How you doing, Moriah? Is this what you signed up for?
Oh, this is great. Okay.
Sorry, that was an abrupt transition, but I just
No, it's time. I want ghosts and saponified corpses and the underground in Seattle, which I am going to go and check out someday.
It's so cool. It's
amazing.
Just really made me want to visit Seattle.
I feel like it's time for art. I think you're right, Nadia.
Yeah.
Well, really fast. Maya, what's your shirt? It's in Armenian. What does it say?
Oh, it's Sir. Or ser.
What is
Ser.
Ser,
It means
yeah.
love.
That's nice.
Where'd you get it?
Etsy. Yeah.
Nice.
I was on the hunt for like Armenian clothing last year, and I saw this shirt, and I was like, you know what? That's simple, but it's representing my heritage, so I bought it.
Did people often ask you about it?
No.
Were you aware? No.
Just me,
Just you.
because I can never remember what it said.
I think maybe 2 at most. You know what? Probably not even that. I might just be imagining that.
Oh, it smells really good in here.
Oh,
I'm
this is
so
the part-
excited for this.
This is the part of the show where I get really jealous and envious of those of you who are actually in Seattle. Moriah, are you close enough to where Jared is that you can like go and eat his desserts?
I could drive up there. I have to make dinner tonight, so I can't, but I could.
You could just drive up instead
I could.
and eat there.
I could.
Yeah.
I'm abandoning everything here. I'm driving up.
Just shirk those responsibilities.
Yeah.
Good plan.
I could do it tomorrow before work. Oh,
There you go. He has too much coffee ice cream.
he does.
It's
I
a lot.
do.
A lot of coffee ice cream. I noticed.
He's gonna need some help with that. But yeah, he told me to ask you about your art.
Oh, did he? Thank you,
did.
Jared.
I don't think I said that.
So maybe not in exactly those words. In much the same way that, I don't know, Donald Trump did not say to overthrow the government. Not in an actionable way that would hold up in court. But he implied, Moriah, that I should ask you about your art.
Oh,
I'm
thank you,
pretty
Jared.
sure I didn't even do that much, but okay.
It exists.
Put words in my
It exists. And I hold the term art loosely.
Good,
Oh, be
good.
quiet.
But is
Art is
it
more interesting when you have to ask whether it's art or not.
what's it made out of?
My tears and regrets.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's conceptual.
I mostly just do like digital stuff now because art supplies are expensive and I'm lazy. But
Plus you control C.
I don't know how much there is to say about it, to be honest, except for
Okay.
the regrets part.
Well, what do you like to paint? Because you mostly do digital painting, right?
Yeah, I do mostly do digital painting. I paint pretty much anything. Most of the time I do like studies of stuff because I have no inspiration like 90% of the time. But yeah, sometimes I will go off of a study or like I'll. What am I saying? That's just using a reference. I was about to be like, sometimes I'll go off a picture and make something else, but that's just using a reference.
Did you draw a lot when you were little? Is it
Yeah.
a continuation or yeah?
Yeah, I don't think I really got serious about it until maybe around 11 or 12. I think that's when I started thinking, oh yeah, maybe I could do this as a career.
Nice. Is that what you want to do? Like draw as a career or something art related?
Yeah, I have very ambitious plans. I'm pretty sure they're not going to happen, but I'm holding them in my head just in case. So
It's worth a shot.
yeah. So for a while now, I've actually wanted to be a concept artist for video games.
Oh yeah.
And then I think maybe within the last few years or so, I've started thinking I don't want to work for any of these companies because they suck. Because the video game industry is not kind to its employees. So I'm thinking, in the past few years, I started thinking, oh, now maybe I kind of want to start my own video game company so that I can have a more of an ethical workplace for people who are interested in working on video games.
Nice.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
We should, a couple episodes of Kitchen Party ago, we had my friend Jim Monroe on, who is like a big guy in Toronto video games. He co-founded, we have a organization here in Toronto that he co-founded, but isn't involved with anymore, called Hand-Eye Society, which is basically for people making video games as art. And it's all like it's like queer friendly. It's like pushing the boundaries of what a video game is. It's people doing like independent stuff that's really interesting. And there's a lot of people doing that internationally. And so what Jim is doing now is something called GAIN, which is the Game Arts International Network, where he's trying to connect people. He's trying to like network people who are doing like little grassroots things around the world in like cool indie video game art stuff. So I should send you those links so you can just like see what people are doing. Yeah. Because I kind of know about it through him, but there just seems to be a lot of really people who don't like the mainstream ethics and aesthetics of what's happening with a lot of video games and are really doing their own thing and treating video games as art. And he has this whole thing about how, like graphic novels weren't considered art for a long time because they were like pulp, and even novels weren't considered art because they were like trash that, that women read or whatever. And these things have sort of become mainstreamed, but through people doing really innovative artistic things with them. And video games he thinks are like that too, like they're an art form.
Yeah, absolutely.
Underrated.
I love video game as an art form. Like, I mean, the ones where you like Overwatch or something like that, like that's fun. But I think video games are a really great way to like be able to like be a part of the story, because you're not just like reading words on a page, you're actually interacting with the story, and it's basically like you're a character. Yeah. I guess, or something like that. And you can like kind of feel like you're going places, even if you can't go to the house. But yeah, I love the potential that video games have for storytelling and like immersing yourself in a world or whatever.
Is there one that you particularly like? Sorry.
I was going to say another organization you should check out too. Is Dames Making Games.
Yes. It's a Toronto one. Which is what it sounds like.
And there's someone at MIT Labs, I think, who's doing a project where they're funding, like giving grants to people who are trying to do things to make the internet less mean and unpleasant. So, which like is another, like it's not exactly what you're talking about, but if you're ever had a project that was sort of going in that direction, that might be a place to look for funding as well. Okay. There's like a lot out there. I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, those are all very cool stuff. Cool things.
Sorry, I was going to ask you whether there were any video games in particular that kind of are what you're talking about that you like.
Well, some of them actually haven't come out yet. Like I haven't had much money to actually buy video games. So to be honest, my experience is kind of limited. But a couple of the games that I think that I've actually played would probably be the Portal games, because those are just modern classics for me. But also like
The Cake is a Lie.
Yes, The Cake is a Lie. But also BioShock, I think, does a really good job of immersing you in the story. But there's also a couple of games that haven't come out yet. I'm trying to remember what they're called. One of them is like you're this character where you have to go around and like document like a world that's like ending, I guess. And like you talk to people, get their stories, you take photographs. It sounds like really low key, but also really, immersive and interesting. And then there's another one where it's like this kind of cyber futuristic thing, but you're a stray cat or something. And
I've heard about this. Yeah.
I think what happens with it, I feel like I've heard about this too, and it sounded amazing, but
yeah, I don't remember exactly what you do, but I don't remember exactly what you do, but the thing that I took from it, yes, you get to wander around a stray cat. That's the dream.
That's what else you need, right?
Maya, what was that game that you kept telling me about that's like derived from Hindu or Indian mythology?
Oh my gosh! Okay. It's called Raji, an Ancient Epic. It's literally the most beautiful game I've ever seen. It's like he was saying, it's based on Hindu what's the word?
Mythology?
Hindu. Yeah. And it follows this girl and her kind of her brother. Her brother gets kidnapped by like these demons, and like the world is falling apart. And she has to go save him. And the visuals are just the most beautiful thing. And then like as you go along, you see like these murals on walls and stuff like that, and you get to hear stories of from Hindu mythology, like the creation, like how certain gods were created or something like that. And it's very interesting and very beautiful. I gotta say, the ending doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me and wasn't that satisfying, but I still love the video game. Yeah.
I'm muting for a second because I'm going to start making meringue and it's going to be very loud.
Right. I might we might watch you do that. I was thinking while you were saying, speaking of like not having a lot of money for video games, we have a librarian on the chat. Wendy, is it I don't know. I mean, obviously you don't know about the Seattle system necessarily, but can people in Toronto get video games through the library? It's actually something I don't know.
Yeah, no, actually you can't. It's something that we piloted at a couple of branches several years ago, and I think the problem was that there were so many different platforms, and that it was sort of hard to find a type of game that would work across platforms. But I follow a bunch of librarian groups on Facebook and stuff like that. And I know there are libraries in the States that do. So it's probably worth checking with Seattle Public Library to see if they do. Like it's sort of 50-50, they might. But yeah, that's one of the tricky ones. It's like, it's really hard to develop a collection when there are so many different ways of doing it.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Because it's not really standardized at this point.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's sort of like, it's like the Blu-ray versus regular DVD thing.
But there's a million, there's like at least half a dozen of them.
Exactly. It's like that times a lot. So yeah. And we don't want to like seem like we're endorsing any one platform, you know. So it's hard. I think they do have like there are like youth hubs that have equipment that might have like I don't even know what they have anymore. Like, is NES still a thing? Anyway, there are some that might have like some games, but you can't like take them home necessarily. It's not sort of a part of our system.
Yeah, well, still shout out to the Toronto Public Library for. I also don't have like a lot of money to buy art, books, and music and movies that I want, but I get it all through the library for free.
We have a pretty solid system, I've got to say. Toronto's pretty good for that.
I feel like there's branches of Toronto, like there are libraries that are branches of the Toronto Public Library system that like they have like a puppet. There's one with like a puppet library.
Oh my god! Okay, the puppet library is actually. What? I just want to. Okay, I'm gonna. Let's see. Is my employer going to see this? I'm gonna say it anyway. There is a puppet collection at Toronto Public Library that's been around for a really long time, and I have to say, so the way it works is if you're going to put on a puppet show at your branch, I used to be a children's librarian, and so like a few times a year you do a puppet show, and there was this central collection of puppets that you could go up and have them sent to your library and then do the puppet show. But I've got to say, the couple of times I did it, they were the creepiest puppets.
I was thinking when you were describing it, I bet they're creepy as fuck.
They're seriously creepy.
I bet going into the room, going into the room where the puppets are kept at night would be completely terrifying.
Honestly, like it is someone's job, or it used to be someone's job. Someone was the puppet librarian who would like look after that collection, and I feel like that would be the scariest job I can imagine, because it's in the it's right down the street from your place actually, in the Lillian Smith building. It's got big griffins out front, and it has a children's it's got amazing stuff actually. It's got a children's collection that's got all the old Evil Band children's books and a bunch of other old sort of children's ephemera, like slates that people used to write on and stuff like that. And then there's the science fiction library. It's like a science fiction reference collection that's got like first editions of all the old science fiction pulp magazines from the 1930s and stuff like that. So cool. And also there's this room full of scary puppets.
I did not know about the room full of scary puppets.
I don't think you can even go in as a member of the public. Like I think it's sort of like it's so cursed that it's just like blocked up. But we did Where the Wild Things Are.
I just love imagining some like creepy, like the best possible children's librarian would have to be like a super creepy person themselves that would like be into creepy puppets, but then it like also doesn't make sense. It would have to be some weird like Lemony Snicket character who's like simultaneously into creepy puppets, but also like really
Kind of
great
cute and
with
whimsical.
kids or something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we tried
yeah.
to do where the wild things are, and it was like, and the thing is, the puppets had been made in like the late 60s or something, so they were totally decaying. At the same time as they were puppets of monsters. They were scary paper mache and like fun for puppets of monsters, like yay big, that were totally falling apart, like eyes falling off and like the one limb kind of broken and sticking out like this. And my thing was I was at a library. We also have a lot of libraries have this now, sort of like technology labs where we had all kinds of camera equipment and video editing equipment and stuff. And I was like, let's make a creepy stop motion animation movie with these puppets while we've got them. Since I'm not going to do this puppet show because it's terrifying and I don't want to scare the kids, let's just like make a movie instead. And everyone was like, no, you can't do that. We can't make fun of the puppets. The puppets are like sacred to the library. So I'm like kind of worried that, someone I work with is going to see this and be like, you, Jacques Hughes, you don't like the puppets. But honestly, man,
I want to see at least like a photo essay of the.
I actually did take some
detail
pictures of them.
decay.
I think they were on an old phone, but I might be able to dig them up. I will see if I can find some pictures for you. Or maybe if I ever become a children's librarian again, I will book them and do like a movie out of them, because I feel like that was a missed opportunity.
Oh my god, this is
so
yeah. I'm so happy that I know about this now. I'm gonna finagle away in there because it's like a block away from me.
Go and like ask.
Can I see the puppets?
It's called the Bagshawe Collection, the Bagshawe Puppet Collection. So go in and just say, hey, can the public view the Bagshawe Collection?
Maybe during doors open or something. I don't know.
So you're going for Block TO or something like that, the Toronto Star.
It's for research.
It's for research purposes. I need to
I am an independent scholar of creepy puppets. And, yeah. Oh my god. So once again, I don't really have a good segue, except like we were talking about, I did like awkwardly segue to art earlier, and I want to ask Inbal about, because you had like I was Googling you for this episode, and I realized that you had this awesome exhibition up in Lunenburg, and I have a couple of images from it, but why don't you explain what it was?
Yeah, sure. So right now, my business in Lunenburg, I came to Lunenburg and I didn't think I was going to stay here as long as I did. But I ended up getting a spot as the artist in residence at the Lunenburg School of the Arts, which is actually where I am sitting right now. I don't know if you can, this is terrible.
Oh my God.
Trying to turn the.
This is great. I love it when people show us their room or give us a tour on their webcam.
Yeah.
That's so nice. So you're actually in the studio. This is like a multimedia?
Yeah, I'm in the studio right now. I don't know. The internet is kind of shoddy up here because it's located downstairs actually, but I'll see if I can kind of.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
It's giant. So the studio, this is not all my studio. I'm just using it right now because it's Sunday and there's nobody else. There's no classes in here. Usually there would be, they do a lot of classes, like just open to the public classes. And so there's one tomorrow. So I'm like getting the most use out of this space before I have to get out tonight and back into my studio. The internet in my studio is atrocious. So I don't know if I'll be able to show you that at all, but I can try and show you some of the things I'm working on, which relates to maybe an image that Nadia has. But I'm making these flags that are basically personal flags that I've designed for different women seafarers. Mostly in history, but now I'm doing a couple more for current women captains. And so it was something that I proposed based on this woman that I was sailing with. I was like on a boat in New York that did day sails, and they had flags everywhere, like, a lot of schooners will like fly flags, just like, 8 different flags at a time. And she pointed out one that is, they're in specific spots to give specific information. So if you look at a boat and you see a flag hanging off the back, that is like the country of origin. But if you look at, a flag at the top of the mast, on the front mast, it means something completely different. So she pointed out one in one specific spot that was like the captain's personal ensign, which I guess the tradition is that I think typically in like British naval, history, when officers would typically be like members of the aristocracy already, like officers would have a coat of arms. Then when they would get on a ship, they would like fly the captain's personal coat of arms in a specific spot. But it's still a tradition that, the ship that I was on, it was like the flag of New York City because all of the relief captains were from New York City. And in a lot of places, it's like the state or the province flag where the captain is from. But when I learned about this, the woman that was the captain for this ship was like, I've sailed with some people who will, when they, sign on, they'll do a little flag ceremony to hoist their own, like, lovingly hand sewn from, their wife or their grandma or whatever, their own personal ensign. And she was telling me this whole story and I was like, yeah, like Kirsten needs her own personal ensign. Like, she's so cool. And that's such a cool thing. Like, having a personal flag, it's like this huge honor. But who is going to do it for them? So, some cake updates.
Cake.
Yeah. Now I've got to put the topping on.
Sorry, I just realized I muted myself because I am afraid my air conditioner is loud, but it's really hot in here. So yeah, just a momentary interlude of cake. So this is that's the spice cake, and the walnut topping is going on top of it.
Yeah,
so
it's
how
walnut
does this...
and coconut.
Okay. Oh wow. So sorry, what happens next? Now, are you going to start like? Is that meringue that I see in the lower right?
That is meringue. It is not done.
Okay.
I had, you cook it while you're whisking it over the heat for a little bit, and then it gets whisked again with vanilla, or well, in this case, brandy.
Cognac. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and cream of tartar. But this gets broiled, so it gets all like caramelized and bubbly and whatever.
Oh. Okay, so I'm gonna keep an eye on that. But sorry, Inbal, go on.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It looks delicious, Jared. Yeah, anyway, that's the basic idea. I sent in a proposal. I didn't think I was gonna get this residency, and then they were like, we think it's great. And part of my proposal was also that because this is the same place, it's the home port of the ship that I had sailed on, I wanted to see if I could try using like sail canvas for these flags.
Oh, right.
Sort of just because I didn't want to use like new material. I wanted to use kind of like a found material, but also it's interesting that it connects back to like the sailing history. And I ended up getting like a huge, massive sail that was active, like, I don't know, in the late 90s, early 2000s, and got a giant rip in it and they couldn't use it anymore. So I've been making all of these flags out of an old weathered canvas sail that has been around the world like at least once. Yeah, which is really cool.
That's amazing. You don't happen to have any of them there that we could see, do you?
I do.
Funny you should ask.
But yeah, Nadia has some better pictures of them. I mean, I can show you some close-ups.
Actually,
but
yeah, what
has
are you?
some better, like images. So just to give you an idea.
Scale, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll try and hold this one up.
Oh wow.
I don't know.
Nice.
Oh,
that's
they're really
amazing.
big. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's that on the lower right hand? I can see the star, but what's the image? Is it a flower?
Yeah, this particular one, it's a specific kind of flower because this particular flag Again, the show that I had, it was mostly flags for remarkable, like noteworthy women seafarers in history, with one woman who's like currently a captain, but this one is a flag for a French seafarer named Jean Barret, who went by like Jean Barret, who in the 1700s was hired as a botanist's assistant / like footboy, cabin boy of a botanist that was on the voyage of Bougainville, who discovered the flower like Bougainvillea in Brazil in the 1700s. It was like at the time when people were starting to classify things using the like genus and species classification system. Linnaeus. Yes, thank you. But it was also because it was just sort of developing that time as a science. A lot of these like botanists, because it was a new field, were depending on the knowledge that already existed of what were known as like herb women.
Sorry, just doing this again. Look at this. Is that actually the inside of your oven, Jared? Do we have like a live oven cam? Yes, we do. Oh my God, it's working. That's so cool. It's sideways. It's tilted, but you know, that's still pretty awesome. Sorry, once again. Take it.
I gotta pull this like boiling sugary mass out of the oven.
Danger.
Yes, safety gear.
Yeah, don't.
Sorry, yeah. So,
no burn hands.
Assistance.
Yeah. So anyway, because like women weren't allowed to be sailors, this herb woman disguised herself as a man and is credited, at least like in the European world, as the first woman to have circumnavigated the globe. Yeah. So the flower is like it's a specific flower that was identified pretty recently, actually, or it was identified before, but was only recently named after her, like in 2012, despite her being a part of all these voyages and like identifying and collecting, you know, thousands of specimens in her own time. She didn't really get scientific recognition until like super recently. And it was by naming this specific flower after her. So, yeah.
Wow.
So this is,
That's really cool.
I looked up, there's, and I'll post the link. I mean, when this goes on YouTube, there will be links and stuff, and I can share the link with anyone. It doesn't really work very well for me to post it on screen because you can't click on it. But anyway, so Inbal's show there's like a virtual version of the show, and you can look at some of these images. And I was looking at them and reading and they all have these amazing stories, like the one you just shared. And there were a couple that I was like, okay, I want to get you to explain this one.
Yes.
Rachel Wall.
So yeah. Rachel Wall. So a lot of this is also, she was a female seafarer in the late 1700s, mostly out of Boston or around like Massachusetts, New Hampshire waters. But she became known as a seafarer basically because she was accused of highway robbery. She was accused of stealing another woman's bonnet. And then she was, scandal. Yeah, bonnet theft. And then she was brought to the gallows. She was condemned to hang.
For a bonnet?
For a bonnet, for stealing a young woman's bonnet. Well, I mean, the woman claimed also not that just, she tried to steal her bonnet, but also that she threw her down on the ground and threatened to cut her tongue out or something like that. Something, ultra violent.
So it was like aggravated assault plus bonnet robbery.
Yes, exactly. But it was, I guess, at a time in Boston history where they were super not merciful at all on any kind of crime. And so they did hang her because they wanted to make an example out of any criminal that they could. But in doing so, they would also take the sort of last rites. And
so they did hang her. She did not escape.
They hung her, and then she but before they did, they took like her one kind of life account of like any last words. And what she said basically was, I've never met this woman. I do not admit to stealing her bonnet, but I do admit to piracy, which was like never brought up. But she said that
plot twist.
That's amazing.
Plot twist. I'm not a highway robber. I did not steal her bonnet. I've never met this woman before, but I am a pirate. And then she told this whole story about how, you know, she like ran away with this guy. She was from Pennsylvania and then ran away with some guy when she was 16, and he turned out to be a sailor. And then she would go out sailing with him, and eventually they turned to a life of piracy. And he was like kind of in the picture, out of the picture. You know, he would be in jail, and she would like she claimed that she would actually like bake files and saws into loaves of bread to bring to him in prison. And then, you know, he would be in jail, he'd be out of jail, and he would kind of disappear. And she was like, you know, I didn't know where he would go. So when they were together, she would go with him, and they would sail out and wait for a storm. And then after a storm, they would disguise their ship to look as if it had been wrecked in the storm. And she would call out for help to any ships that passed by. And when they got close enough, their crew, they would like, you know, board the other ship and pirate them. And then when he left the picture, I think after he was gone, I think she didn't realize that he had been dead for several years at that point. But she turned to not highway robbery and stealing bonnets, but she did admit to like stealing off of docked ships in Boston Harbor, stealing buckles and coins and stuff. And so, yeah, she basically admitted to all of this freely, but also admitted that she had never met this young woman that claims to have had her bonnet stolen.
Wendy, I see you waving a book that is perhaps relevant. Is that?
Oh, no, that was just me moving the book aside because the cat is here and wants to jump up on the table and making room for the cat. Well, so she's. I kind of want to let her do this. If I try to pick her up, she'll just struggle and run away. So I feel like if she jumps up,
coax her.
I sort of have to coax her or make room for her, but actually she's about to leave, so I'm just gonna see if we can get her on camera here. There she is.
Oh, the little one.
There she is. That's the little one. Little cat. Oh, hi, sweetie. Yeah, you're getting attention. You like that. So anyway, so she was like, well, I'm gonna be hanged anyway, so I guess I might as well. Oh, here she is. She's doing her thing now. This is what
yes.
Like, so I'm gonna be hanged anyway, so you might as well know that I, in fact, am a pirate. Like, this is a fair talk. I think not because I stole on it, but
she saw her like opportunity. Like, I think at that time, women especially, but also just like anybody, it's like we don't have a lot of personal accounts unless somebody was really considered important for some reason, you know, whether they were like a criminal or a lawmaker or some like local figure. So I think she saw it as her chance to like, she's like, all right, yeah, like this is my moment. Like, I have somebody who like, I can't read or write. Somebody's writing down my life story. Like, I'm just going to tell them what I did.
Oh, that's amazing.
Which is, yeah, like,
that's so good.
I admire that. Which is also the kind of the story of Nadia, I think, has another image.
Yeah, this is a really interesting story.
Yeah, it's a kind of similar. It's a similar story in that it's similar to actually both the last two flags that you saw, in that there is only one account of this person's life. And it's a flag for a sailor who went by the name John Taylor, was given the name Mary Ann Talbot from birth. And it's not entirely known, like, you know, lived up until like the moment of going away to sea as a young woman. And then immediately from the point of like going to sea, and then even afterwards, lived as a man, or at least wore men's clothing, which at the time, like in the also late 1700s, the 1790s, was enough to be considered a man. So it's kind of like, I don't know, wishy-washy. Like it's uncertain what this person would have liked to have been considered. But the basic story is that it was like a, you know, childhood of fortune and like all of this privilege and wealthy parents who were estranged but offered money for, I guess I'll just say like John Taylor's education. Well, I'll just say Taylor, going by last name. Taylor's education, and was actually educated, which is, you know, sort of not common, I guess, in those days for people who end up going to sea. And then from sort of after the education until only a few years before death, worked on like at least 7 different ships, going from like battle to battle, like basically joining one ship, having this like crazy story, and then going from that ship to another ship and ending up on like an enemy ship and just like bouncing around and basically having that be like, this is the thing that I can do and that I know how to do. And I've been able to like escape my life. So I know how to sail. I've been on warships. I'm experienced with this. Like, I'm just gonna make this my job now. And then also like in this single account, in addition to telling about all of the ships that they had sailed on, made all these claims of like, you know, being in the Order of the Oddfellows, being like the only woman accepted into the Order of the Oddfellows, wherever it was, like whatever local lodge in, you know, London that had been, you know, accepting this person, and like being a theater star at some point, and doing all of these like incredible things. But also did sustain, yeah. And at the same time had like sustained a lot of injuries from all of the sea battles and like getting like shot blown into legs and just terrible, you know, war injuries. And so at the end of their life, having like, despite having these injuries, also because of the injuries, getting a proper military pension, which wouldn't have otherwise been granted to women at that time. Yeah, I don't know. So if you're ever interested, yeah, I found all of this in one account. It's like just one story in a PDF called like The Great Adventures of John Taylor or Marianne Talbot or something.
Wow.
This is just like, who has a life like that anymore? Like the amount of adventure. There's like an entire HBO series on this person's.
Highly recommend reading it. It's like, it's an unbelievable read. The whole thing is bananas. It just goes from one thing to another without stopping.
Yeah, it's just incredible that people actually, you know, you read, or you watch movies and stories about people at that time, and you think, oh, this is I'm sure exaggerated, and I'm sure many people led very quiet lives, but there were people out there just actually like going out and changing their gender and being pirates, and then switching to Broadway stars with shrapnel in their legs, and good lord.
The interesting thing,
I had like 48 or something too. He was like,
that was, I mean, also like not very long lives. That's the thing that you learn with all of these accounts.
Packed with incidents.
It's very concentrated.
Everything happened and then they died.
You got to get everything in that you can.
The other thing that I've learned with this kind of account also, it's like, oh, I think my phone's going off. One second, sorry.
While she's doing that, Jared, where are we at with the...
The cake is in the freezer cooling down.
Okay.
The cognac meringue is done. It's right here. Just got to assemble everything once the cake is cool enough to not instantly melt the ice cream.
How far away do you think we are from completion? Because we are at about 5 minutes to 6.
Pretty close. The cake took longer to bake than I thought it would, so that pushed things a little bit back.
Like we can go over 15
and
minutes.
the finished, like baking the whole thing, baking the Ararat. It's just a couple minutes.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's what I thought.
We might go a little bit over 3, but I don't think it's gonna.
Okay. Cool. So sorry, Inbal. Continue.
Yeah. No, it's all good. Yeah, I think the thing that I've like learned, the most like major point that I've learned from all of this is that like a lot of people want to criticize historical accounts, and like especially in academic settings, people like to say like this isn't how it happened at all. And I think historians tend to, because a lot of historians' work is like interpretation, and because there are so few accounts, they have to like look at the only account they have of one person and then look at all of the context and then form a kind of interpretation. I think there's a sort of like knee-jerk reaction to look at it and say like, well, hey, wait a minute, like none of this is true. They said this happened, but if we look at the context, like this actually happened. But I think it's like important in looking at each of these stories to consider that history is like, it's a lot more complicated than that, and that it's possible that, you know, this person in their account may have misremembered some details, but it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Like, it's, I think discrediting somebody's account that happened that long ago, especially, is like unfair. And yeah, that's, I don't know, that's why it's fun to recognize it in such an outlandish way, because it is such an exaggerated account of like, we then got in a storm, and you know, when we had to let go of everything, and we tossed 28 cannons overboard and all of our barrels of water, and it was so terrible after that I was licking from puddles in the deck because we didn't have any more water. It's like, okay, this is obviously pretty over the top. It's really amusing, and why can't we appreciate it for its like unbelievability as a story, you know?
And also you get a sense of who that person, like that person probably would have told you that story over a beer like that, and you get a sense of who that person was from how they're telling their story. I like your point too about how, especially women, most people just didn't, like, we're not necessarily even literate. No one was writing their stories down. No one was recording any of this or taking any notice. So you get these stories, and yeah, people kind of leaned into.
People were just like, "This is my moment to tell this."
Yeah,
and so they like really went all out with it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the past,
check that out.
Sorry, Wendy.
Yeah, like with like, it's possible also. I don't know. I'm not being at all even remotely a historian or connected to history at all, but like I get the feeling sometimes that the past was just like stuff happened back then that was like that was kind of intense. I'm thinking of like my husband's great grandfather was a children's author who wrote like 200 children's books. They're all about young boys who leave the city and go and work on a farm and develop values. But the thing is, like, it's something that happens, right? But then, like, his story was bonkers. Like, he left home at 12 and was a correspondent in the Civil War, and like when he was like still a kid. And he had, like, there was a period of his life where he and a friend lived on a tugboat in the Great Dismal Swamp, and he had a pet monkey, and it's just like, and all of this stuff is pretty documented. Like, some of it might be exaggerated, but like, yeah, I mean, he was a fabricator, like, he told stories, right? But there are newspaper reports. He was a fairly well-known figure at a certain point in his life, and there are newspaper reports where it's like pretty well documented that he had this kind of crazy life. And yeah, and I'm just sort of like, yeah, you don't hear of just sort of people living on tugboats and swamps, and you know, like, yeah, right. It just seems like somehow maybe things were just a little weirder and more like, even my grandmother, you know, like, had a sort of Anne of Green Gables childhood where she was born in Saskatchewan and then put on a train. Her mother died, I think, and she was put on a train as a baby and sent to Nova Scotia where she had relatives, like, alone. in the care of the conductor, and then was bounced around from relative to relative, like through her childhood, and
He's
then just
a
went,
baby, like chilling on a train,
just putting
like,
a baby on a train, just like, you know, off you go. And then she went, like, then she was, when she was like 18, she went to New York and she was an editor at Harper's Magazine for 2 years, and then she came back and became a small town school teacher. And it's like, there's no more context than that. Like, this is the story that I get about my grandmother. I'm like, so, but why? What happened? Like, and everyone's like, no, I don't know. That's just that was her deal.
Yeah,
I just feel like it was, things were wild back then.
things just happened. If you ever read, it reminds me of one of my favorite authors is Eric Newby, who writes a lot of. He has a lot of. He's kind of a travel writer mostly, but it's a lot of that kind of thing. It's like his just accounts of like. When he was 18, he worked at an ad agency and it sucked. So he left and went to sea. And he has like this experience of like being a terrible sailor amongst all these Scandinavians, like sailing on a cargo grain, like a grain cargo sailing ship from Australia back to England, like basically all the way around the world. And then like other stories of when he met his wife in Italy, who is like, she was an Italian, like, in an Italian farming family that like hid him during World War II, and then they like ended up getting married and traveling the world together. And like, he just has these crazy stories that, yeah, you're like, I don't know. I feel like I know people like that now that tell stories that seem really unbelievable, but you're like, it could happen.
Maybe
like,
it happened. Like, you know, like, kind of, why not?
You know, it's too weird almost sometimes to have been made up. So like, sure, I'll believe them. You know, why not? Which is, I feel like people need to take an approach to history like that a bit more, where, I mean, you know, with some restraint maybe in certain contexts, but
yeah.
Here we go.
Yes.
This is okay. So that's the cake with the sugary topping.
Yeah, very sugary.
The meringue. So how does this happen? How does the ice cream go under the cake? Are you going to hollow it out?
No, it just goes on top.
Okay.
Just splat.
Oh, I see.
Which this is going to be. So it's not super obvious how big this actually is, but it's like almost it's almost as wide as my hand, and my hand is not small.
Oh man.
So this is going to be huge. We'll see.
I think he might need help eating that.
I was about to say, Jared, I am assuming I can get some gas. I'm coming over tomorrow and I'm stealing some.
My thought had been, I can just plop this on top, but I feel like it's not just going to slide out like that. I don't know why I thought that was even a possibility.
It looks like it's the right shape for that to happen, you know? I totally get what you're... Yeah.
But it's, I should have put it in plastic wrap or something. Come on.
The next time.
Coax it.
There we go. Come on.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
So much ice cream.
It is.
So much ice cream.
Yes.
Ooh, this is super soft. This is gonna melt.
Huh.
But then it'll freeze, right? It'll be good. It's okay.
Yeah, it's just slopping off. This is like the Great British Bake Off Challenge where they made it. Get in the freezer really fast. It's not gonna fit. I'll just leave it there for a second. Okay. This might be the failure Chris has been waiting for. So I'm going to put the meringue on really, really fast.
I feel like we need like piano music, like fast piano music.
Yeah.
Chris also wants some leftovers. Yeah, it's true. We want to.
Like the Benny Hill theme song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, this ice cream is really good.
See, this is really the important thing is, does it taste good? I mean.
Yeah, this is going to be a gigantic mess.
But a sweet, sticky, creamy, delicious mess.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Meringue.
Here we go.
Oh, yeah, look at this. See, if you smooth the meringue enough, no one will know what a mess it is underneath.
No, because the ice cream is going to leak.
Oh.
That's unavoidable.
Hmm.
It just didn't freeze very hard, is the thing.
It might be your freezer. It might just not be a super cold freezer.
I don't think it's the freezer. I think the ice cream is just Oh yeah, this is going to be a huge mess.
Oh, it's magnificent though. Look at it.
Yeah.
It's like
Magnificent.
billowing.
Yes.
Yeah. A
It's going to
fluffy
be. I'm going to pull this out of the oven, and it's going to be a lake.
Soup.
It is so gross. When I first thought of doing this, I was like, oh, maybe I'll make it look like Mount Ararat itself. And then I
Yeah.
realized Mount Ararat has 2 peaks, and it would be a little weird looking.
Challenging.
Just like
Like,
pair of breasts. Thank you.
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Meringue boobs.
Yeah.
boobs. It's a conceptual representation. Oh, I do see like the ice cream is already.
Yeah, this is such a mess. Okay, into the oven. This is not going to be great.
Godspeed.
Into the oven with.
Yeah.
we
This
go.
meringue is. I did such a terrible job putting that on.
I feel like this is like one of those cases where you would want to have a blowtorch around just in case.
Yeah,
I-
well, I
yeah.
wanted to do it with like.
The nun's farts. Yes. Thank you.
Well, there's
Someone
those
else has noticed
pastries
that.
that are what is it, Saint Agatha's or Saint Agnes's boobs that are like marzipan with a cherry on.
Yeah, nun's farts were when I lived in Quebec for a while, like years and years ago, and that was one of the first things that I was able to translate in a grocery store. That was it was like gratifying. I was like, oh, what are these cookies called? Huh. You know?
This
Yeah.
is a hideous mess.
Aw.
No.
Bring the phone over so we can see.
I've got to
brilliant.
be able to pull it out really fast. So
Oh,
I
yeah,
can- I
okay.
can bring
All right.
Fair point. Yeah.
We're on tenterhooks.
We're watching Jared watch the meringue.
Yeah.
So for ice cream to be able to freeze a little harder, this would not have been a problem, but it just didn't.
Is your freezer just like not cold?
No, my freezer's fine. I think the ice cream just needed longer.
Oh.
Hmm.
This is really gross to look at right now.
Can you describe it?
What does it resemble?
It's disturbingly biological.
Melted Jasper.
It's
Is it Cronenbergian?
a little
Krista
bit. It's a
says
little. What does Krista say?
Krista says next time I'll lend you a culinary torch so you don't have to put it in the oven, which probably would work. Yeah.
Yeah. True.
Well, but in this case, with this specific sequence of events, I don't think it would have, just because again the ice cream is so soft the meringue wouldn't even stay on.
Right. Right. Fair.
Right.
It's very like left this.
Ned says video bake.
Yeah.
So there's this this person on Instagram who goes by the name Waterbod. I don't know if anyone else is familiar with them. And what they do is they take pictures, like extreme close-up pictures of sort of like slimy things that live in the ocean, pulsating. And that's what I'm picturing right now. It's like a starfish or like a sea slug or something.
I mean, let me Google saponified corpse relief.
Yeah.
See if it looks-
Is that what you made? Is this like the cake version of a saponified corpse? Is that-
I'm wondering.
That would be so thematic and
We know it
amazing.
would come
Yeah.
back, but
Oh my
secretly,
god!
How do you spell that?
We came full circle. It does look a little bit like this saponified.
Bravo!
You did
I mean,
that on
it's not
purpose.
a baked Ararat so much as a saponified corpse.
Well,
Wait, what was her name again?
Renamed it.
What was her name? Mother Dreadnought? No, it was
Mother
Damnable. Mother
Mother
Damnable, right? Yeah.
You know, I mean,
What?
Ararat is a volcano. So
Ah!
Oh, hey.
I'm pulling this
Throwing
out
some
now. I think it's not
baking
as
soda
done
and
as
some
it should
vinegar.
be, but it's not going to get any better than it is right now.
Take a photo of it before it completely implodes.
Aw.
Aw.
I
So
would
you
eat
can
that.
see how much the ice cream is coming out.
Oh dear.
Okay, time to eat. Yeah,
Sure.
the meringue should have browned, but if I left it in there any longer,
I was gonna say, take like a lighter and just hold it right
Yeah.
up against
Yeah.
the meringue and go.
That'll work.
Reconsider drenching it in cognac and setting it on fire.
Yeah, there's that.
Yes.
Right? Like, hey, we could still have flames, right? Oh, wow.
Ooh.
No, it looks good. It looks really good.
Oh, yeah. It looks good. The side view looks good.
So
Here we go.
Ta-da.
Yes.
Bravo.
Yeah, put it-
Yay. Mother damnable. In
Yeah.
cake form.
Another damnable.
Oh, we have to see your face, Jared, as you eat it. There we go.
this is really good.
So
It's
very-
very, very rich. I took too big a slice. I can tell you that already. So now I got to get this onto a plate and into the freezer before it.
See, we have people think it does not look like a saponified corpse. It looks it looks yummy.
I think it
It
looks
is-
delicious, which doesn't
it's very,
necessarily
very
mean that it doesn't look like a saponified corpse too. I like not having seen a saponified corpse, then the jury's out, but it does look really good.
See, I
Oh,
feel
this
like
is going to be okay.
the index of how good it is, I've realized from I was reviewing some of these episodes, and the degree of embarrassment that Jared displays upon eating it is, I think,
The marker
index
for
of how good it is.
how. Yeah,
Yes.
the more embarrassed he is, the better it is.
Exactly. Like if you were consumed with shame when you ate the opera cake. So I think that's really been like the best part so far.
The opera cake was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I know nobody currently on camera got to have any, but
Is it gonna fit?
yeah. But I did have to pull out that goose corpse.
Is the goose corpse still in there?
It was. I keep meaning to make stock out of it, and then I need to borrow my mom's stock pot, but that's been difficult because I don't think it was enough for them.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I can bring it up when I come to get some cake.
Could you? Because I'm tired of having a corpse in my fridge.
Okay.
It's kind of on brand for you.
I know, isn't it?
How is that? Did the meringue actually cook through? This is the thing I'm always curious about. Like, how
Well-
does the meringue cook through without melting the ice cream?
Ooh, with that topping between the ice cream and the cake,
Mm.
when you get a little bit of that. Hmm.
Jared,
This
you sounded
tastes
like
really
mom
good.
just now.
But with the
No, just the whole thing. Like the bit where you said something like when you get the topping between the ice cream and the cake. Like that whole thing, it sounded like mom.
I am my mother's son.
Very much.
So I made a Swiss meringue, which is cooked as you whisk it. So
Right,
the
you
meringue
were
is
cooking it, yeah.
technically cooked.
Okay.
Like I said, it really should have browned, but I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't leave it in there long enough for that.
Hmm. How does it taste, the meringue? Is it? Can you taste the cognac?
You can a little bit, but I don't think you would know it was there
Hmm.
unless you already knew it was there. Sorry, I'm just demolishing this.
Yeah.
Would you try making it again with like more frozen ice cream? And would there be like a? Is it worth a second try? This is. I think it's good because he can't stop eating it.
There is so much ice cream just everywhere.
In your environment.
I think that was too big of a slice. That was.
You also swallowed it whole like a python.
That's just how I eat.
Yeah, like that cinnamon cake I got like 3 bites of.
Oh my god!
Ooh.
I might make it. It was the cake is really good. The
Mhm.
ice cream is really good. The meringue was really good. The biggest issue was that there was a lot of cake.
Right. Okay.
So I would need to, I think, probably have the recipe.
Hmm. Or could you make the same amount of cake, but cut it so it's shaped like a mountain, like carve a mountain out of the cake, and then
Because it's got that topping on it, and you would lose that if you carved it.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
I think just making half of a recipe would produce a thin enough cake layer to go with the ice cream and everything. Yeah, it all goes really well together.
Nice.
With the spices in the cake. And the cake is really, really sweet, but the ice cream is also pretty strongly coffee bitter sort of tasting. So it's not, the whole thing together isn't overly sweet. For me.
Once again, you're making us envious and hungry.
Yeah, I mean,
I will eat it in your honor.
This soup, it's so gross.
That's yummy though. The melted ice cream. Yeah.
Well, you can at least have the like meringue that's been marinated in melted.
It's like a floating island.
Yeah. Like you can stick that whole thing in the freezer, then just like, I don't know, cut it into bars.
Yeah.
Put it back in the food processor.
Yeah, exactly. See what you get.
When in doubt, make it into tiramisu.
A true saying, yeah.
Oh, that was so much sugar all at once. That was too big of a piece. It's making me sweat. So much sugar.
You always do that when you make a dessert. You're like, this is too sweet.
For somebody who makes a ton of desserts, I don't actually like incredibly sweet things. And yet I keep making them. Because everything I've made, I think, so far on this stream has been unfamiliar. I don't know how much to eat of it. But I know now this would be something you would slice pretty thinly.
There you go.
They've all been really ambitious too, with a lot of steps.
Well, that's part of the initial premise of the whole thing was to make something with a high chance of failure to be more entertaining. And so far, everything has more or less worked. This one is the closest to actually outright failing that I've done, but.
It kind of imploded in an interesting visual way, but you can still eat it, so I would not count that.
I'm afraid to open my freezer and see it's all slopped over the plate that I put it on. Well, it probably has.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
So yeah, we will hopefully post links if you want to like create a recipe that we can post with this when it finally goes on YouTube.
Yeah, I actually did put the recipe together on its own.
Good. And was the spice cake from which of the 70s recipe books was that from? Can you show us? Do you have it there? Is it?
It was from this one.
Okay. Does it have an illustration, or is that no illustration?
I don't think there's an illustration with. No. I think there's some like interstitial ink drawings of kebabs or something. But... Anyway. Well.
It is 6:17, so I think we're going to end the broadcast. Those of you are, I think you know, you can still hang around on the stream if you are on the stream. But I'm gonna say goodbye to the people who are watching from home. Thank you so much for watching from home. If you are watching from home, and just to remind you once again, if you've been watching, we are part of the Megaphonic Podcast and live stream network. You can watch our other live streams on the Twitch network with Chris Puma does a crossword thing on a regular basis. We do games of various kinds on Friday nights. And of course, megaphonic.fm is where you will find all of our fancy little podcasts, or at least Jared's fancy little podcast about Tolkien, as well as many others about great books, bad movies, and various things in between. So thank you so much for joining us, folks at home, and we will see you next time when who knows what Jared will cook, but we know it will be an adventure. Goodbye, and goodbye to say thanks again to also all of our guests as well. Yeah. Everyone wave goodbye.
I was waving goodbye.